Hey guys, it's your boy Roy, and I'm just gonna make a quick video. Yesterday, the Ninja Gaiden Trilogy pack got announced, and I see a lot of people on my timeline and also on Reddit and stuff asking, okay, why are people disappointed that it's the Sigma versions? And I thought instead of just writing out a giant post, I'm gonna do this. So here it is. First off, I want to start. There are parts of the community of people that like Sigma more than the originals. And I do admit they are a minority compared to the people that like the original releases on the Xbox. But usually there's also a different style between these games. The biggest difference between the originals and the Sigma versions is the emphasis. The original versions, and this is most notably in the second part, so Ninja Gaiden 2 and Sigma 2, is Ninja Gaiden 2 is about brutal, crushing difficulty. A lot of people call it unfair. I think that's a bit. Sorry, English is not my first language. We say kort door de bocht in Dutch, which means it's a bit like a quick conclusion. Ninja Gaiden 2 is fair, it's just incredibly brutal, and you need to accept that taking damage is part of the gameplay style. Sigma 2 is very different. You're far more allowed to do player expression, styling on enemies, doing fancy loops on bosses, because the difficulty has been lowered significantly. And the difficulty has also been lowered not just in enemy aggression, but also in enemy numbers. So, for instance, you can pick up the most famous fights in the game, but there's fights where in Ninja Gaiden 2 you're fighting like 50 enemies or 20. And in Ninja Gaiden Sigma there's 3 dogs just running around, that's it. So that's mostly for Sigma 2. It's the emphasis, and a lot of people, they don't play Ninja Gaiden for style or for player expression, they play it for the brutal difficulty. Some people play it for the gore. I feel a lot of people emphasize too much that the gore was removed from Sigma 2, is that it's fancy and it looks cool, but it's not like the game, the essence of that game, because the mechanics surrounding the gore, the dismemberment, is still in Sigma. For Sigma 1 is a really hard nut to crack. Basically what happens, you have a lot of versions. For Ninja Gaiden 1 you have the original, you have Black, you have the Hurricane packs, which sort of came before it. You have Sigma, and then Sigma Plus. And Black is generally considered to be the best, because, it's my coffee that's ready. I'm literally doing this while I just woke up, because I thought then I'll get it out of the way. So Black is, in the original, are adventure games. There's puzzle solving, there's exploration, there's backtracking. Combat is a part of that game. It's not the game, like later action games would be. It's kind of like how Devil May Cry 1 was part combat, but also exploration, backtracking, puzzle solving. Ninja Gaiden's a bit just like that, and not in terms of setup, but in terms of structure, and you know what I mean. And what happened with Sigma is they removed all the adventure parts, well, nearly all of them, in favor of just pure combat. And this game was made just before Ninja Gaiden 2 was released, if my timeline is correct in my head. So, if you play Ninja Gaiden Sigma, you're not going to get the whole adventure part, which, depending on your player style and preferences, you might not even miss. You might be like, I don't want to do these weird-ass puzzles or backtracking. I'm not really into that thing. But what they did on the same end was the combat was remade. I'm not exactly sure on the developmental details, but from what I've noticed while playing it and also reading developer logs, it seems like they rebuilt the game from scratch. And as such, some quirks of the engine or little details were removed or overlooked. The dodge animation, for instance, is changed, which has slight implications for Sigma. But the biggest deal breaker for a lot of people is that it's easier. A lot of enemies either come now in waves, so fights are longer and more boring, and I know I just said it's easier, that part might be but a lot of bosses were kind of nerfed. There's, what did they do? They added a new weapon, the dual katanas, Dragon's Claw and Tiger's Fang, which are sort of like shoved in there because it was a weapon that was being promoted heavily for the sequel at the time. And it's not overpowered. It's still overshadowed by the Dragon Sword, which is the best weapon in the game, for the most part. But for the early game, it has a couple of moves that just melt everything away. So a lot of people don't like that. The biggest change, I think, is the Rachel chapters. You can now play as a secondary character, but it's not optional. So you have to play as her for, if my memory serves, 3 chapters. I've played Sigma a lot of times in the past, but once you go black, you don't go back. And for the Rachel chapters, she's just not a well-developed character in terms of gameplay, at least in that game. Sigma 2 also has female characters, but in Sigma 1, like the core emphasis of Ninja Gaiden's combat is its brutal difficulty and Ryu's mobility, so that he can jump around, wall jump, and how that works in the combat, that you can jump off enemies onto walls and stuff. That's the beauty of the combat, and Rachel has none of that mobility. She only has the slowest weapon in the game, which is the Warhammer, which is still a cool weapon, and she has a sort of grappling hook that doesn't really work. It's more like a projectile. It's really weird. And a lot of people, every time they reach those chapters, are like, fuck this. Other little details that are missing are stuff that mostly veteran players will notice. And of course, they're the ones that are right now saying like, fuck, it's the Sigma versions. Because the people that just play this casually, every version is fine. The only version I might recommend against is Sigma Plus 2, because it's very laggy. But generally speaking, you're good. But if you're like a guy that wants to play games on a higher difficulty, then you're going to notice these differences. Like in Sigma, that certain boss weaknesses have been removed. The timers for certain fights to get you a high score have been made impossible to beat, because the fights have been made longer in some instances and the timer has not been adjusted. Some extra fights have been added, some cool cutscenes have been removed. It's just, Sigma 1, I always describe it as, it takes one step forward. For instance, it looks more beautiful. I'm not gonna lie, it has a better graphical fidelity. Step forward, but step backward is there's now suddenly less costumes to unlock. Like, what happened? Why were these removed? So it's constant back and forth. For Sigma 2, it's a completely new game. You can play Ninja Gaiden 2 and enjoy Ninja Gaiden 2, and you can play Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, and it has the same levels, sort of. The enemies look the same-ish. Ryu's moves look the same, but they act completely differently. Some moves that are really good in Sigma 2 are really bad in 2, and vice versa. And like I said, for a lot of people, the main difference is the difficulty. Sigma 2 is very easy, even on Master Ninja, at least in my opinion. Because there's so little enemies, and Ryu is so overpowered in Ninja Gaiden 2 to compensate for the huge pressure you're on from enemies. And in Sigma 2, there's just not enough enemies to keep up that pressure, so you can do really cool shit, but it doesn't have that element that people liked so much about Ninja Gaiden 2, which is the insane pressure that you're in. It's like, yeah, it's you have to play it to understand it. It's kind of weird to say that, but some people might have played Vanquish on its highest difficulty, or played Bayonetta and fought, I always forget their names, Grace and Glory? Those 2 golden enemies. Imagine a game that's just 20 of those guys at the same time. Like, that's Ninja Gaiden 2. It's completely bonkers. But for a lot of people, that adrenaline rush is unique. Personally, what I'm really disappointed about in the HD collection is that it's not just the Sigma versions, but it's not the complete versions. Because I mentioned at the beginning, that there's a Plus version, which were the Vita releases. And the Vita releases were inferior, technically speaking. They had less graphical fidelity, they had frame rate issues, but they did have more content. Sigma Plus added some new costumes, and Sigma Plus 2 added more costumes, but they also added a ninja race mode, and some other modes that were like Karma, speedrun stuff. I haven't played that game enough to even remember them. But those functions, at least from what I'm going from the description on the Japanese Team Ninja website, are not there. And what's even worse is that the co-op feature of Sigma 2, you could play online co-op in team missions, which was really cool and still pretty innovative in the action genre, because you don't see that a lot, is absent. They just, fuck that, we're not going to do that. It's probably too much work. And for me, that kind of signifies that it's, why? Why did you remove these? Maybe they're just doing a wrong promotion and it is the plus versions, in which case that would be pretty cool because we've never had those as a stable release. You can play them on emulators, I guess, and on the PS TV. But who has a PS TV? I don't. What else is there? So yeah, I think one thing to really keep in mind is the people that are complaining about the Sigma releases are the veteran players, and usually the veterans prefer the original releases because they're more tuned for them. The Sigma versions are more for more mass market appeal, I guess. I think that's a fair way to say it. They're also by different directors, should be added. So it's kind of like if suddenly, I know a lot of people play Devil May Cry. It's like if Devil May Cry 1 got released by Kamiya, and then later there's Devil May Cry 1 Sigma by Itsuno. And he still makes the same game, but he changes things to be more like his style. And I think you can already see the differences that it's going to make. And it's kind of the same here. Itagaki really wanted to make a game for like one person, which was probably some insane coke addict. And Hayashi wanted to make an action game that was the perfect action game that everybody could enjoy, which is commendable. Both are commendable, I think. Lastly, there's Razor's Edge that's in the bundle. A lot of people hate Ninja Gaiden 3. They don't hate Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. I think that's a really big distinction to make. Ninja Gaiden Team Ninja, they did a fantastic job remaking that terrible game in 6 months into a game that's actually really decent. I still think I will die on this hill that it has the best combat system in any action game, the third entry, Razor's Edge that is. But it has a lot of shit. Like it's still, a lot of people call it a pig with lipstick. Might be an apt term. Personally, will I buy the Sigma HD collection? I will, just to support Team Ninja. I do feel that because it's just the quickest, like it feels like a cash grab to me. They grabbed the most recent releases that were the easiest to port. They probably cut off the pieces that were not easy to port, like Sigma 2's multiplayer, put it on a disc. It's probably going to be 50 to 60 bucks. So for me, that's a bit like, yeah, they just want a quick payday, and I think Ryu should deserve more, as well as the series, because it's my favorite action series at the very least. That said, I will support them because I want more Ninja Gaiden, and I'm also excited to see more people experience these games because the Switch, it's going to launch on the Switch at least, and I'm going to assume it's also going to be on PC and PS4 from what I read on the Japanese website because there's multiple versions or something. And I'm excited to at least that more people, a wider audience, can re-experience Ninja Gaiden and at least discover those games. And there's a good chance that if you're going to play Sigma 1 or Sigma 2 and you're going to go on the Reddit or forums or Stinger, you're going to notice, hey, you know, Black looks pretty cool. What the fuck happened? Or Ninja Gaiden 2 looks fucking insane. And then you see that weird-ass Xbox console on discount because nobody's buying it. Are they? I have no idea. And maybe he's going to try that. And if only one person buys Ninja Gaiden 2 and enjoys it because of this, that's worth it in my eyes. So, yeah, that's basically my reasoning why Sigma is not inferior, but less preferred. So, that. I'm going to have coffee now. I hope this was helpful. I don't know.